In 2009, 6 people stood around a shallow grave in the early morning frost. They held shovels in their hands and looked exhausted from digging. The air smelled like dirt and sweat. If anyone had told Paul this is how he'd spend his senior spring break, he would have laughed. He was supposed to be on a road trip with his sister Cassie, 1,000 miles away. Instead, he was burying her in the woods with 5 strangers who said they were her friends. Cassie had died in a hit-and-run accident the week before. Her perfect life got destroyed in an instant. Something about it felt ironic, though Paul couldn't say what. He wasn't there when they found her body, thank God, but he heard later that she lived for 19 minutes while paramedics tried to free her from the twisted car wreck. A few days later, his parents agreed to cremation and chose a quiet ceremony. They decided to give away her belongings to people who wanted them. That's when Paul found the time capsule. It was wrapped in a burlap sack like a picnic basket. The small metal cylinder sat in the trunk of her Ford Focus like a treasure chest. Some of Cassie's college notebooks showed that she'd been keeping it for a friend, but also planned to bury it in Carrington Woods Cemetery as a childhood memory. Their father suggested they follow through with that plan and bury her ashes next to the capsule. Paul got on MySpace and sent messages to some of Cassie's friends, explaining what he wanted to do. Since many of them hadn't come to the funeral, he thought the secluded meadow with its nameless headstones would be better. No need to dress up, just come and remember Cassie. The people who showed up brought things to put in the capsule, photos, letters, jewelry, the kind of stuff you'd leave at a memorial. Paul didn't ask what they brought or even who most of them were. It didn't matter right then, nothing mattered. His sister was gone, and whatever was left of her would be buried forever or left for future people to find. Paul felt guilty for not adding anything of his own to the capsule, but his father told him not to worry. Cassie was already a bigger part of him than any trinket could ever be. Years went by, and tragedy kept shaping Paul's memories. People held doors for him or gave him discounts at stores out of respect, thinking one good deed could somehow undo his pain. They meant well, of course, but after a while, Paul became known only for his losses. Time seemed to stop after tragedy hit, leaving him stuck. Moving forward meant forgetting the pain. He had to do it to survive. Even though Paul didn't want to forget Cassie, that's exactly what slowly happened. He moved away, got married, and built his own life. Another tragedy brought him back home. During Thanksgiving break, instead of celebrating, Paul spent the day answering police questions. When he got to his parents' house, something felt wrong. The Christmas lights were dark, the power was out, and he couldn't hear the dogs. As he walked toward the door, he got a bad feeling. He knew what he'd find before he even went inside, but he made himself check anyway. Inside, his worst fears came true. His mother was lying on the living room carpet with bullet holes in her back. The den was trashed. Everything stolen from the flat-screen TV to the coffee table decorations. Bloodstains showed that his father had tried to fight back before running away. In another room, Paul found the body of one of the intruders. The guy was dead from a head wound. While Paul answered questions, a cop mentioned finding something weird under the dead thief's body. Paul immediately knew it was Cassie's time capsule. Finding it raised scary questions. How did the burglars know where it was buried? What was inside it? The police let Paul take the capsule home, not knowing it held secrets connected to all that bloodshed. When Paul finally opened the capsule, stuff spilled all over his bed. At first, nothing looked important. Old jewelry, photos of Cassie camping in the woods with friends, newspaper clippings with weird headlines about unsolved killings and missing people near Carrington Woods. Then he found notes written to his mother and photos of his father digging graves in the cemetery. It hit Paul. Cassie had faked her death and used the capsule to hide evidence against their father. She thought he was a serial killer. Paul found a notebook with his name on it, written in Cassie's handwriting. She told him to look for answers at the cemetery. Shaking with nerves, Paul drove to the woods, telling his wife it wouldn't take long. He easily found Cassie's grave. It had been dug up, and so had others nearby. A voice whispered from the trees, making him jump. A woman came out. It was Cassie, wearing camouflage and holding a camera. Behind him, a gunshot rang out. A big figure fell into the freshly dug grave. Their father. He had followed Paul there, planning to hurt them both. Cassie walked forward, shaking as she dropped the gun. She explained that it had taken her almost 20 years to prove their father's crimes. Their mother had paid the ultimate price for not being careful enough. Paul realized Cassie had been alive all these years, hiding and collecting evidence. As they hugged, Paul's mind raced with questions that really shook him up. But none of it seemed to matter as they held each other tight. He had lost so much when he thought he'd lost her. Now, standing there among all those graves, he wondered if they could make new memories together.